Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I have a brand new book I want to introduce to you. It's called Behind Closed Doors. It's written by Evelyn Fort Stewart. It is her life story. It begins from a very happy childhood to being trapped into a marriage of 32 years of abuse. She shares with you how that God helps her through that, and it's kind of a hair-raising story. I want to share a section of the book with you so that you will know what you're getting into when you buy it, and so I'm going to share this. Suddenly, I came full awake. Larry was standing over me with a pair of 8-inch sewing scissors raised, ready to strike. In a knee-jerk reaction, I threw my hands up in self-defense. He quickly moved in front of me and shoved one leg between mine, forcing the recliner upright. I was aware of a glint of lamplight on the tip of the shears, and for some reason, it triggered a rush of adrenaline in me. I grabbed his steel hook and fought savagely, trying to grasp his wrists and pry the scissors away. I'd learned that if I could just hold on to his hook, he was virtually powerless, but it was almost impossible to do. I was using strength I didn't know I had. I finally wrenched the scissors from him, but not before he had managed to stab me over and over again, not deeply, but small, piercing stabs that broke the skin and brought blood. I knew I had no hold. I had to hold on to that hook until I could get to my feet. I had no desire to feel its cold steel penetrate my brain. I'd seen him drive a nail with it. He could even use it to pick up a small coin. Slowly, he forced the hook toward my face. I pushed with all my might. His body fell against mine. Even though his left hand was free, I was still hanging tight to the steel hook. Somehow, in an instant, he fastened his left hand into my hair and jerked so hard it brought me to my feet. In the distance, I could hear a scream. Then everything went black. The screams were so terrifying, they brought me to my senses. That's when I realized the sound was coming from me. Larry was standing in front of me with a maniacal expression on his face. He held out his hands where I could see a huge clot of my own hair dripping blood. A portion of my scalp had been torn loose from my skull. Looking into his twisted face so filled with hate, I knew that if I wanted to live another day, I had to escape. He had made so many trips to the kitchen, I was positive that he was drunk. I depended on that fact of catching him off guard to get away and to run out of the front door. I raced without looking back for the station wagon. When I grabbed the car door and jerked it open, I left a bloody trail. My heart was beating fast as I jumped in the front seat and slid under the steering wheel. Even though I was in shock, I was aware of the incredible pain I felt all over my body, but particularly around my head. I locked all of the doors and reached for the ignition keys when I remembered that Larry had my set of keys. I glanced up, and to my horror, I saw him stepping unsteadily off of the front porch. With dogged deliberation, he ambled to the passenger side of the car. A vile grin spread across his face. In the hand that once held my bloody hair still remained a few limp strands along with my keys. He stood dangling them in front of me like the pendulum of a clock. He was teasing me, tantalizing me with them. Then he slowly, very slowly, slid the keys into the lock. With much exaggeration, he casually pulled the door open, then leaned into me with a half smile on his lips as if nothing had happened. In a low monotone, he said, "What are you doing sitting out here like this? You come on in and let's go watch television." I cowered, trembling against the door. "You come on," he said more sternly. "Let's go inside. Don't make me yell at you again." He never raised his voice. If a neighbor had happened to be watching, they would never have guessed the drama that was being played out in that station wagon. My mind was filled with terror. It raced in every direction at once, seeking an answer as to how I could defend myself and stay alive. I prayed a silent, desperate prayer, asking what I should do. I knew better than to open the door and bolt. Larry would have started the car and ran me down. Besides, I didn't have enough strength to run. Larry dropped the keys in his pant pocket. I tried to get past my fear and use reason. If I went back inside with him If I played his little game as if nothing was wrong, maybe I could get to my purse. The real trick would be to get my hands on my car keys, though, because he had stuck them in his trousers. Back in the den, we settled into the twin recliners, and there we sat, me with my bloody, throbbing body in pain, him drunk and staring me, daring me with his eyes to make a move. Finally, I convinced him that I had to go to the bathroom. I wanted to look in the mirror and see how much damage he had inflicted on me. My head ached horribly. He let me go to the restroom, knowing that there was no escape from there. He stood guard outside the door. As I stared in the mirror, I asked myself if that mangled mess I saw in the reflection could possibly be me. I had felt something warm and liquid run down my neck and forehead and had assumed it was blood, but now I could see that I was wrong. It was a clear white substance rather than white Caro syrup. I cried at the sight. The scalp itself was still there, but a large portion of it was torn from my skull. The only hair I had left was around my ear. As I stood staring, I felt a scream building in my throat. I thought, my God, what kind of a man could do a thing like this? I choked back any sound that I might make, knowing it would only cause me more harm. How would I escape? I had to come up with a plan, and soon. Lost in my thoughts, I nearly jumped out of my skin when he banged on the door. Fear once again gripped me. I quickly wiped away my tears. He mustn't see me crying. The sight of tears made him go ballistic. No matter how much pain he had inflicted on the children or on me, we knew not to cry. If we gave in, he would only hit harder. I opened the bathroom door, stepped aside so I could get by, and then walked to one side behind him until once again I was settled in the recliner. I stared at the television screen, but I didn't see what was there. My mind was spinning. I told myself I had to stay calm. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but if I were to survive the night, I would have to continue to be obedient, at least for a while longer. He took hold of me and told me that I'd better sit still, that he had intentions to murder me. I waited until he was once again appeared to be asleep before I eased my way down the hall and into the bathroom, where I locked the door behind me. I didn't hear any noise coming from him. I turned the water on and let it run until it was warm. Then I splashed my face. Soreness had set in with a vengeance as I attempted to bathe away the mess on my face that had hardened to the consistency of a scab. Larry pounded on the door again. Damn it, you've been in there long enough. Come on out. I didn't want to antagonize him any further. Once more, he marched me back into the den. He stayed in front of me, forcing me to walk backwards. I fell into my chair, breathing a prayer for God to help me through this horrible ordeal. Look at me, he demanded. By God, you better look at me. I did as I was told. He chuckled softly. I guess you want me to apologize. When I didn't respond, his voice got harder. I ain't going to apologize. I'll never apologize to you. I don't have any reason to apologize. Everything I did to you, I meant to do. So don't think for a minute that I'll ever apologize to you. If that's why you're sitting there pouting, you can forget it. Any man that's a real man will ever apologize to a woman. I wasn't trying. I wasn't lying when I once again told him I had to go to the bathroom. My nerves were causing me to have bladder spasms. When he asked me where I thought I was going, I replied I was going to the bathroom. You're going to go to hell if you don't straighten up your act. I had to walk backwards down the hall so that I remained facing him. When I came out, he was propped in the doorway. He had his back against the door frame and his knees bent to keep me from getting out. Now, where in the hell do you think you're going? Lawrence, please back off. Let me go to the den for a cigarette. No, by God. He grabbed me and swung me toward the kitchen. With the palm of his left hand, he shoved me backwards. Before I knew it, he had slapped me open-handed on the right and then on the left. So quickly that it made the pain so intense that I fell to the ground. It was then that he kicked me in the pelvis. I lost count of the number of punches he delivered. The next thing I knew, I was flat on my back on the kitchen floor. Lawrence was standing over me, about to jump on top of me. I drew my knees up to my chin and kicked him with every ounce of strength I had left in me. He staggered back against the kitchen wall, but I couldn't stop him. He came after me again. The look on his face told me that he was determined to finish what he had started. I scrambled to my feet and kept backing up until I was jammed against the sink cabinet. He had backed me into a corner. To my left was the stove, and to the right was the table. He was between me and the back door. Incredibly, at that moment, I heard a voice, and I do believe to this day that it was the voice of God. I heard, "Don't stand there. He has every intention of killing you." I glanced at the table. Within my reach was a 2-liter glass Pepsi bottle. I grabbed it, and as he came at me again, I swung with all my might, catching him between the left ear and the center of his forehead. It made a deep gash about 3/4 of an inch above his eye. I had hit him so hard that I'd lost my grip on the bottle. It literally bounced off of his head and flew across the table. He stood baffled and frozen in his tracks. Blood poured from his wound as if a main artery had been ruptured. When he realized to the extent of the injury, his countenance changed dramatically. He broke out into a wild, crazy laughter, something straight out of a Stephen King novel, and he screamed at the top of his lungs, "Look, just you look at what you've done to me." I did look at what I saw, and it gave me shivers. I saw the demented expression of sheer joy in his eyes. Never before had I seen him so enthralled. He began to catch every drop of his blood that he could and scrubbed his face and shirt vigorously with it, as if he was trying to bathe himself with his own blood. Once the bleeding stopped, he grabbed my arm and swung me around. Using his right leg, he kicked one of the chairs out from under the table and slammed me into it. "By God, you better sit there," he said narrowly. "Don't move until I find something to tie you up. I'm going to beat you to death." As he spake, he was desperately looking around, trying to find something to use as a rope. He was insane with determination. My only advantage was in his slowness of thinking. "Larry," I said as coolly and irrationally and as humanly as possible, "let me call the deputies to come and get me." I knew it would never do to let him think I was calling the sheriff to come and get him. "What in the hell for?" he screamed. I haven't any explanation as to what went through his mind at that moment. The only thing I can think of is that God must have appeared on the scene, answering my plea for help. Larry stood still for maybe a full 10 seconds, then he turned and went into the bedroom where he picked up the phone and dialed the sheriff's office. It was the first time he had let me out of his reach. Once I heard him making the call, I got up and eased myself to within 3 feet of him. Amazingly, he handed me the phone to the moment, and the dispatcher answered. I took the receiver and heard a voice on the other end say, "Sheriff's office, how can I help you?" I'm Evelyn." Larry was pacing back and forth behind me, muttering to himself, "By God, let him come on. Let him come on, 'cause you're going to be dead when they get here." The dispatcher obviously heard him because he said, "Try and stay calm, Evelyn. I'm going to get someone out there right away. You do live on Enon Church Community, don't you?" "Yes, sir." Less than 2 minutes went by before there was a loud banging on the door. "Open up, now." It was the Picken County deputies. Larry stood staring at the door. Then he slowly turned the knob. The 2 deputies rushed into the room. "Just you look at here what she's gone and done to me," Larry wailed. When neither of the officers responded, he went on, "Damn it, I told you to look at here at the blood on me. See what she's gone and done to me?" There was blood and broken glass all over the floor. The deputies looked at me, propped against the kitchen cabinet, and with not enough strength left to stand on my own. "You there," Larry said one of the deputies. "You come with me." To the other deputy, he said, "You stay right here and watch her." The officers did as he asked them to do. Larry led the way down to the basement. Although they were there only a few 30 seconds or less, the pain I was experiencing made it seem much longer. My entire body was in a state of shock. I don't remember the deputy who had stayed behind with me speaking a word the entire time. Every now and then he'd sneak a peek at me as if he couldn't believe his eyes, but then he'd quickly look away again. Most of the time it seemed to me that he stared at the floor. To this day I have no idea what Larry and the other fellow did in that basement, though I know that when they came back upstairs, the man said, well, Evelyn, there's nothing more we can do. We've got to get back to the Pickens office. Without a warrant, our hands are tied. I was stunned. I couldn't find my voice. They went out of the kitchen door to the back door, and I followed them. Larry wasn't to be left behind, however. He managed to get between the deputies and me. He put his arm out to keep me from getting past him. I thought my knees were going to buckle. I sat down on a bricker planter, too dizzy to stay upright. As I watched the men walk away, I thought I would surely hyperventilate. I couldn't seem to catch my breath, and that instant, my fear vanished. It's as a place came a surge of anger. Hey, I called out, just you wait a minute. The men turned to me. I want you to listen to me, because tomorrow when you hear that I'm dead, I want you both to remember what I looked like, and I want you to remember in every day of your life for as long as you live. I went closer to them. You stood there in my kitchen and told me there isn't anything you can do without a warrant. Now you tell me, how can I go get one of those things, because he's holding me here hostage. He's had me hostage for 14 hours, and he's clearly told me that he's going to tie me up and beat me to death. Do the policemen leave her? I can tell you, this scene gets worse. It was a time when the laws were different. It was a time when men pretty much owned women. You'll have to read the story, because God does get her out of it, but it's a long journey to the end of that. If you want to contact Miss Evelyn, you can do her email. It's Stewart Evelyn F at yahoo.com. Her webpage is www.eavesdvhelp.org, which is for Evelyn's domestic violence help. You can see her on Fan Story. She is currently writing her life story of her happy childhood. It is an international writer's site. If there's any writers out there that want to join a really neat writers group, it costs you $48 a year, and they do all kinds of things. They have poets, they have novelists, they have scripts, they have short story writers, they teach classes for as little as $99. It's an awesome site. You can go on www.fanstory.com/Evelyn_Fort_Stewart and read her stories there. The printer of her book that is out is Brant Doubleday. If you want to order through, you can order through Amazon.com, or you can send a check to Evelyn Fort Stewart at 412 Cooper Street, Mountain Home, Arkansas, and she'll be glad to introduce your book, to autograph your book. I invite you to read the book. For those of you that have never been abused, like I haven't, it was a real eye-opener. It made me know and see signs that I would know. Maybe I can't get them out of it, but there's ways that I can help them. For those of you that are hunting for a mate, it gives you signs and warnings, and if you see those signs and warnings, for heaven's sakes, put on your track shoes and run the other direction. For those of you that are trapped in this kind of situation, there is a God, and He does hear you, and all you have to do is turn to Him, and He'll make a way where there is no way. I welcome you to order her book, Behind Closed Doors, by Evelyn Fort Stewart, and she will bless you in every way. God bless you.